but it's not. There's more than just having a firewall within the organization. And it's unfortunate a lot of small and medium-sized businesses don't have people who are responsible for security within the organization. And this is one of the reasons why I like to point this out, because it goes above and beyond just having a firewall in place. Not only does it go above and beyond these technical controls, but the processes, the risk management, all of that. But it's difficult for a small or medium-sized business without a security person to truly understand anything beyond this. When we talk about risk management, this is what we do. This is my process. Very simple, 6 steps. Identify it, evaluate it, prioritize it, plan on how we're going to mitigate it, implement that plan, and monitor it. There's always going to be residual risks. There's going to be gaps, but it's how you monitor those gaps and how you go back and repeat the process. That's one of the things I'm working with right now with our IT department. They're trying to find the right golden bullet to segment our network so that we can go for a PCI audit, so we can keep only the credit card information on those machines. Well, they're looking for that golden bullet. They want to put all these tools in place, all these technical, pieces of hardware. I said, guys, let's not try to bite it all off at once. Let's just do a little bit at a time. We can't get it all in the budget this year. Let's take a look at what we have left, put it on the risk report, identify it as a gap, monitor it. Next year we'll address it. And that's a key point of ISO 27001 also. It's about continual process improvement. You continually improve your processes. Systems change, people change, software changes. As soon as you've put in that control, I guarantee it's going to change the next day. So ways to mitigate risks. This is what I like to tell our clients. Make sure you know where your regulated data is stored. Control how it's accessed. Make sure when we ask for access that there's a business reason for it. Don't just blindly allow us to connect. Make sure you secure your perimeters. Look for vendors with SAS 70 and ISO 27001. Marketing employee, yes, we're SAS 70. We're going to be ISO. There's a benefit to it. Follow best practices. I like to point out some of these. These are pretty basic. Nothing, I don't think any of these would surprise anyone here, really. But it's unfortunate because a lot of the small and medium-sized businesses just don't know or understand the best practices. Yes, sir.
As in ISO 27001 is about best practices, right? So everybody, every auditing company, as in interprets these best practices in accordance with how do they implement the security, right? So is there a set standard, as in, because I looked at some OSTMM that, so can you just throw some light on that, as in some OSTM, as in some set standard to set the security of that stuff, of the standards, of the best practices that are mentioned in the ISO 27001?
ISO 27001 is really about managing risk. Mm-hmm. It's about developing a process to manage that risk. Mm-hmm. Those 6 steps that I showed, that's our process for managing risk. 27002 are the controls that you use to mitigate those risks identified in your process. So it's a little bit more, I think it's a little bit more than just developing a security program. It's about developing a method to manage that risk. One of the things that I like to point out is information security. No, it's about managing risk. It's a big shift, I feel, from information security to risk management. And that's what ISO 27001 allows us to do. develop policies to meet the business objectives, not as a reaction to a problem, but to meet business objectives. Employees are key. Training and awareness programs are very important within an organization. I like to do a security bulletin each week, and I like to make it personal to the individuals and point out to them that, you know, it's not just about being here in the company, protecting the company, but when you go home, I want you to think about it. When you get on your computer at home and log in and pay your financial information, go onto your bank, you know, your bank's website. If your system's compromised, your information's going to be compromised. Learn the business goals and map those back to security. And always, always remember, management will accept risk. I think one of the most frustrating things for me that I had to learn is that there are so many risks that you can't address all of them. You have to learn to accept some of those. My job is really to identify that risk, report those risks to the officers, to the executives, and let them choose whether or not we want to accept or mitigate or transfer those risks. When our CEO started, that was one of the first questions he asked me. He said, "Who's ultimately responsible for security?" I just looked at him, I said, "You are." "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm going to give you the reports. I'm going to identify all the risks. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what to do, but I can't tell you if we're going to spend the money to mitigate those or if we're just going to accept those. That ultimately comes up to you. Now, it is my responsibility if I don't provide you with the right reports, if I don't identify all the risks, if I miss those risks and we end up on CNN, then that's my responsibility. That's my fault. That's where I take accountability. But I know at the end of the day when I identify the risks and report those to the officers and they choose to accept them, you know what? I can't get frustrated about it. They're the ones who are running the business. There's a lot of security practitioners out there right now who do get frustrated with that because they know that's very important to put the controls in place. I have to show this. I remember I read this a couple years ago. I wish I saved the magazine, but I thought this really, really brought it to a point. This tells it all, I think. I was allowed to take this. I took this to our executives and said, this allows us to keep our jobs. This allows us to keep the company functioning. If we can't promise our clients that we could protect their data, we're not going to sign new agreements, new contracts. We're not going to move into new markets. We're not going to become global if we don't have security processes in place. Thank you, sir. This is great. And the rest of this, I just had some sources. There's IBM X-Force puts out a report mid-year and end of the year. I think is a really, really great report when it comes to security. They identify the different systems and vulnerabilities and percentages. I think it's a really great report. You might want to check that out. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
There's a little class in here at 5:30, so we can't stay for too